How do you do? My name is Bob, and I will be your host and guest speaker for the next so hour on behalf of Canadian Society of Celebrants. I would like to welcome you all here to this funeral celebrant lecture presentation, and thank you for your interest. We are here to help establish a certain standard of awareness, and in the future, the funeral celebrant's role that will perhaps play for helping to pave the way in this profession, to set up for certain expectations that all of the funeral directors might have, and both in the public sector, consumer at large. This role can best be described in the services that you all bring from your establishments in the funeral profession and associates alike that they can offer to their bereaved and their community. With so many prepaid funerals, it's no doubt that wouldn't it be nice if we can just be very useful to add a ceremony script, and that can easily excuse me, be modified rather than just start from scratch, similar to pre-arrangements. When you have an need, is it better to already have it pre-packaged, pre-planned, and you're ready to go out the door pretty much, and during these times of grief and emotional turbulence, the last thing you want to do is say, hey, I need extra time to prepare a script, a bespoke ceremony script at that, and a script that can clearly reflect the life values and beliefs of the beneficiary. A script that can later be accessed within the pre-arrangement files and further expanded on in greater detail even. The celebrant must care enough to write a script and that anyone can pick up later on to officiate the service and or be able to have multiple speakers for the ceremony participation. It is the kind of leadership without seeking to be the center of attention. In this way, we can capture the essence of the dissidents and their wishes. From there, it will continue on, and suffice to provide the starting point of the grieving process for its survivors who will require more than just one service to see them through. This self-development that extends and ripples out. The celebrant must provide a continual path of grief expressing ceremonies to help its patrons, and for as long as they require. And there's such the officiant's role. There are these three main components to the celebrant for the Canadian Society of Celebrants perspective. Other than that, celebrants can be all sorts of things, including licensed in the UK, for example, and here in Canada with the sovereign province of Quebec and the way they're meaning to be officiate. And an officiate can be an umbrella term even for licensed and unlicensed and religious officials alike. But in its true essence, it goes back and forth, celebrant slash officiant. So what is it that the celebrant has? Also, the officiant component that must be familiar to the venue. The officiant must be familiar to the venue and overall surroundings. Is responsive to the timing and what is happening. The conductor is what the officiant is, helps to orchestrate the ceremony, but not necessarily responsible for the script, nor having to publicly be the speaker. That's all on the onus of the celebrant. As the writer of a script and is responsible for the interviewing and getting to know the clients to be able to put together a meaningful script. And whether or not they be foreseeing it, it could also be public speaking, is the third and final role that a celebrant is needed to engage with clarity, confidence, and with a range of pace and intonation. And so as we go and move forward, what is Canadian Society of Celebrants? It's a conglomeration of entrepreneurs. It's a collaboration. It's a fellowship that forms a society that brings their fast forward of business, education, spirituality, and training. That provides a curriculum of books and handout and course curriculum through self-study books, online presence, tutorials, peers that can see them through and help guide them, assist in certifiable courses, as well as training from mentees, other like-minded online portal members, in particular practical celebrant training. Under this structure that the Canadian Society of Celebrants has formulated and is providing. And their vision is a collaboration with other like-minded entrepreneurs such as myself, and to form a mentoring incentive from the educational body, and from this to be able to provide programs that can bring about more celebrants and ceremonial officiants. Their mission, Canadian Society of Celebrants, has a spiritual perspective, open to serve all faiths and interdependently thriving individuality, to provide a curriculum that does structure through self-study books, such as the one that is here that we will be further discussing, just briefly. We're not here to advertise or throw commercials. It is part of the curriculum in certification. And Canadian Society of Celebrants aims to further enhance the theoretical with a mentorship practical component. And so as we go, it's not just reading the books, see, and we have so many samples that we can take. And what are celebrants? What is this value that they bring? Is the next question that I wish to answer here. Celebrants are focused individuals and or a grouping of practicing ceremony professionals, in some cases hold council for licensing, as they do in the UK, with a common intent of bringing folk together for a special occasion, a ceremony officiants as well. They can also be passionate writers, speakers with their advice and direction. A space can be held for praiseworthy events to empower. They are independent contractors that create from their own schedule. And officiate can be an umbrella term that can be, let's say, of a licensed officiate. not necessarily celebrant. A celebrant is also an officiant. So you see, hopefully that kind of clarifies somewhat uh, confusing meaning that can be interchangeable in some aspects. And it's like, well, here we go. In this curriculum, this is an excerpt from the volume one. That's also an ebook, but the ebook is just to get your feet wet for those novices who are lay people and just want maybe the consumer wants to know more so that they can add value to their ceremony and like things that they never knew before is what the ebook is all about. It's not really. It's actually not a prerequisite once you get into wanting a certificate, then you have to purchase the hardcover book. And the hardcover book is the next stage, and after that, you actually pay for the tutorials and handouts and for the guidance along to certification. So let's begin here. What is the value? And according to the funeral officiant and ceremony, of course, and funeral celibacy excerpts from page 18, it goes on to say the deceased, he, she, it, your pet, it had a name. And excuse me, in most cases, a pet can be as close to a person as a child. And we also have samples and case scenarios to study if you so wish to in this course outline of this volume one, exclusively for funeral services. And the acknowledgement of this is in the details of what is this value that the celebrants bring. And they share a camaraderie for the deceased by creating a space for sympathetic expression. It can start with sharing of simple written and carefully thought out message, as with condolences. It could start off as considering, oh, here comes the eulogist, or breaking off into an officiating, conducting role where others have their space and they can get up on the podium and say, a moment of silence where they can come up and speak even and say anecdotal things of the deceased, memories, eulogy, whatever it is they want to say, come up and have a few words. You can allot perhaps 5 minutes for them to come up and say something. And any more than a page or two, once you get into that, it goes beyond the 5 minutes. So you really want to, be the conductor. So you're officiating. That's part of the officiant's responsibility. And so the specific qualities and favorite memories, they remind us all to be strong and keep authentic. This is the best kind of support that can empower the bereaved. So when we speak about the decedent and their loved ones that have gone from this body, and rather than having them rely or depend on certain individuals, like the funeral director or like the priest or like something else that it's not of their authentic expression, that they want to come out and explore what's in their heart, because that's what holds all memory of their soul. And this is part of the grieving process, is sharing those things. So offering to reach out in this way provides a creative openness to share the grief alongside the grieving. Excuse me. The opportunity for as many to become involved in this experience, it takes the whole community's support. And the more that sharing get involved, the stronger the support. And then the experience that they share together is ultimately this whole focal point, and can be a recruit between all who come together, no matter who or what the system was to or for them. Their loving and sincere remarks will and can add to these memories of our youth. Again, we can help as celebrants to advise with honesty and awareness what they can our clients or patrons to expect. However, we must prepare ourselves that as their only backup for just in case they cannot make it to the podium to speak, that we have a script. All are invited to stand up and speak their piece, however, not required. Children can also have their place where they can ask as many questions, and in the script perhaps be included the opportunity, however, never forced. To see, you can have a lot of time, but if someone kind of falters and they can't say anything and they freeze, you can come up with something that you have something as a backup as well, because not everybody's going to provide. But this is something we have to impress on, that if you want to speak, we want something there as a backup and to add to our script. After that, you can have something and just improvise as long as you have something there. This is what's so important about the script. This doesn't have to be perfect. However, this is where you, as the officiant, can improvise the script, or as the celebrant rather, and even speak on their behalf. And so, as we go further, a society is Canadian celebrants. Canadian Society of Celebrants is the society to help to bring about more celebrants. And with that said, we also have these codes where you can go and then QP code, however you like to call it, and it scans and it brings you right to this person has accredited 2 to 4 hours criteria and tells us successfully on achieved completion of the theoretical practical schedule outline as it shows here. So from the diploma, what you see here is this code here that if you scan it, it takes you right straight to seeing it's one of those Q codes, and every certificate provides this. Whereas the diploma is an actual seal and a stamp that is also signed, and so the diploma is a little bit more authentic in the older way of doing it, whereas the certifications are more like the code that sends you to this site. But in any event, the volume that you read, the book, the hardcover is 258 pages, and for those who inquiry of perhaps even a letter that could be permitted to the BEC or whomever it is, they would ever allow, or however it is that they approve of. It's 4 to 5 hour read, and perhaps maybe a few credits can be accredited, or 1 credit. In the older versions it was that you would have this. However, for the purposes of this here, you only get accredited for 1 credit, and it's only an hour. And so this is the presentation. If you want further credentials, you would have to speak to us directly so we can give you something in writing. And then with that, you can get further permission for future credits. And it would have to go through to that as well. for further approval. And then we get back to you and let you know that it's okay and you can go through with it. But for today, this purpose is here, and for you to participate is only working credit. And so we move on, and if you're here and present, and the certification that will be approved by BAO or the BEC committee, they will issue you whatever it is that the approval that they approve of. And as we continue on, for those interested, what the book will cover is certain things that will improve on your awareness to bring more value to your clients, and also the making of celebrant. So, table of contents, you would have chapter 1, what is Canadian Society Celebrants, as we discussed, and the curriculum expectations, which we will go further into, but we'll see if we have time. And the certification mentoring, what certified funeral celebrants, key responsibilities as a celebrant, the funeral director's role, why have a funeral celebrant, the funeral senator. This is some of the things that you will have answered. And the mission, which I already briefly discussed, what are celebrants, what is the value, I just went through that. What is the funeral, the first call, how to deal with it, you've heard much of all well know from celebrants' perspective, and snipping off effect, dispersing third party suppliers, we were there to perform a function or pay respects. What are we there to do? What is our role? This must be of distinction. What is our role? We have to define it, and we're there providing the service that we don't blend in, mix our roles. Like we have to have what is our function, and so that there are no conflicts of interest. So you're general duty assistant or your licensed director, you gotta know these things and stand up, right? And be firm. And so what is a ceremony? And what is the difference between semi-secular versus secular? These are questions. These are actual questions that at the end of this lesson, you will have to know what these are. And a celebrant, semi-secular versus secular. So what is that? Okay, so the celebrants are not subject to any of the monastic confinements. What does the word secularism suggest? That we must be an ethical union of humanist societies. So to know what we are not also defines who we are. So celebrants can serve all walks of life, including the atheist, non-secular, secular, confused, and politically mad hatters and agnostics. On the other hand, Canadian Society of Celebrants can incorporate much more meaningful secular methods and non-secular beliefs. So, with the interfaith and all other such non-denominational ministry affiliations alike. So, as we move right along here, what is religious, what is non-religious? This is what we were speaking of, the non-secular and the secular, meaning non-secular beliefs with the interfaith and all other such non-denominational ministry affiliations alike, and the secular ones. So that's the difference. And when we get into semi-secular versus secular, oh, we don't want to confuse you all here because there's way too much to get into. So this is why a book was created. And so through time, the exploration of expansion and could this be the non-secular perspective is just scratching at the surface of this. It's very own study, perhaps. Our souls can recall these celebrations of what is life and threshold crossing and remind us of this linear time of existence, of what these really mean. So you can do semi-religious, non-religious, spiritual, and the list goes on. And when you get into religion, then you have to be a religious official, and then you're just officiating. And celebrants do everything. Celebrants are not limited. And this is what it's describing, as long as we know. And moving on to what really is the funeral experience. Over and over again, the same old variants require us to adhere to and protest in the giving back as testimonial enforcement. It is a very subjective mess that can be left open to reinterpretation by those who might be more objective. So as we go, we keep evolving. And those who don't want to evolve start looking like ridiculous. And so there's conflicts of interest, because where do we show compassion and when do we draw the line of charity? You see? And so what is traditional? This is the next thing. The cultural identity has us prompting into certain tribes that can support us. This concept is made in reference to, and sometimes it could be viewed as a paradox when mentioning traditional. So for some it is the only cause for celebration, and for others the agitation to reconfigure just the same. However, it does have its level of importance to value. The very order to string along and carry out performance. Where does this marker go? Where do we place the tombstone monuments? You see, we have traditions of how we do things. It's a custom. We grow accustomed to things, and therefore we make it a popular belief, and it becomes tradition. And so breaking out of tradition is called evolution. And so as we move on and we become more modern, we have to let go of some certain things because they just don't make any sense. And so as we keep going, these are just some of the questions that you're going to be asked at the end that perhaps you can answer in your own flavor of what it means. And from it, perhaps if you can change your perspective in a newer, more evolved way that can help your patrons. And so from here, you keep going into clergy documents, sample sheets, case scenarios, and the list goes on of what this book can do. And then it's up to you to modify and become an actual celebrant. And through time and confidence, you can obtain this. And so, what is the funeral liturgy? Pre-need versus prepaid? What is the relevance for a contract? Pretty much all guys know this, but when you apply it from the perspective of a celebrant's role in all of this, it kind of becomes a little different, and it just kind of changes up things a little bit more, and it just started becoming a little bit more modern, and with it, and the times that we can actually provide a better service and become better at what we do as funeral directors, you see. And so with that said, what is metaphysical spirituality? What are the different types of religious ministries, the Abrahamic way, and all these things that better define us and who we are and who they are. So it kind of pays to know more about these things. And as we move further into chapter 2, interment, green, and natural burials, that I know that a lot of people have a really hard time with, letting go of the concrete walls and all these things. And we really don't have to, but why not know more about the eco-friendly, bamboo coffins or paper maches and all these other alternatives as well to have that, we would benefit a great deal from knowing. And so from all of this said, how do you plan a celebration of life? A celebration of race services, it can include, and what about a bespoke ceremony? Was that a hybrid? What is that? And then the graveside ceremony services, where does it land? You see, funeral ceremony, uh, we have some samples here that you can see from the beginning to the end. The elaborate and unusual services, chapter 3, during interview helping to create a portrait. We're not just eulogists here. So a lot of people might think that. And so after this, what else can we talk about? Selecting funeral songs, perhaps, to further elaborate, funeral ceremony, uh, of other people, that even pets, to consider, and what is the purpose of this book anyway? Where do we go from here after our annual licensing renewal professionals that we are? The principles of this volume would have been to practice and the practices of funeral ceremony to present to the celebrant of officiant and closely allied professionals such as yourselves a dignified involvement of modern funeral rites to include constructive guidance to the bereaved to follow through the bereavement process, excuse me, rather the grieving process. Catch my breath here. And the funeral director too can benefit all of you from this in their local public relations programs. This book, the novel, the book, volume one, whatever it be, if you really want to get into it, it describes a great value for the bereaved and their contemporaries' attitudes towards grief and help to resolve unexpressed behaviors within the family dynamic, community, and society at large. The text is designed as a continuing reference. It can be an excellent source for public relations and the respect you seek from the realization of its importance. Now, it's not for everybody because some people, it could be even very controversial for some people because they might not be all willing to accept the disclosures and the transparencies of perhaps a reflection of themselves and how they've been conducting their services. And hey, folks, it's time to change it up a little bit. See? And so business education, spirituality, and training where they come together and bring forward the best. It is what Canadian Society of Celebrants is here to offer. And from that said, this focus is particularly made intentional for the Ontario funeral directors in mind, perhaps any other vocational resonance that might also require time and for training on related topics. And so this is, as mentioned in the earlier parts, and this designed to help alleviate over in the thousands of dollars that one must pay and travel far and wide to find. It's cost effective, it's efficient, it's something that would require a lot of your time and effort to do the work. See? And so it does not have to offer an online course to further, and you could just pick up and just leave it at that, even, or even after this, it's something that whatever it is that you gain, the better you become when you can see it and when you can acknowledge it and sink in and really understand what we're trying to offer here, a system that is not damaged goods from its previously held given authorities. The adjustments will be left up to the reader to decipher and just on how they go about the step-by-step process will reward them directly every step forward of the way. So even by just listening in and participating to this is something that has enticed you now. It's planting the seed for better things to come. And so as we move right along, there's step 2, step 3, and this you'll find more about. It just briefly describes what you're going through and what you will be going through if you would like to keep going at it at your own pace. And you can pick up volume 2 or volume 1, whatever way to go backwards, forwards. It doesn't have to come from the funeral side, right? And so, what is possible at the end of this volume or the read or whatever it is that you want to pick up and progress in? One thing is for certain, you will have gained enough insight to fortunately have the capabilities to inform others, add value to your services, and most of all, the confidence to answer all these questions. For example, is there a difference between a religious official and a celibate? So from what you have already listened to from my speech, is this true or false? Is there a difference between a religious official and a celibate? Okay. So if it's true, give it at least one reason to why you gave that answer, even if you say false. And then let's see, after answering these questions on your own, when you pick up the book, if you so wish to, or from any other locations, however you see, one day you will have the answers. What is the Canadian Society of Celibates? Well, this has already been answered. And I will further discuss some more, perhaps, if we have the time to expand on it. And so, what is the difference between secular and not secular? Well, one is religious and the other one is not. It's very simple. And what is spirituality is not a religion, but it can be. So when it becomes a custom and it becomes a traditional belief set in place, it's passed down for generations, and it becomes a program, and then it becomes an indoctrination, then it becomes religion. So what is bespoke ceremony, and what is a bespoke ceremony script? So a bespoke ceremony is also here. A bespoke ceremony is something that it answers for itself, but you can go deeper into it, and it further describes it so that it's a way of personalizing a person, a unique reflection of that person and their survivors through anecdotal uh, things that they say about their idiosyncrasies, some memories, some reads, some poems, and so as we go on here, it go off as starting the ceremony and the opening reading, introduction, words to soften grief, a tribute, a eulogy, readings, tributes, middle, closing, benediction even, but benediction can also be non-religious. So it's up to us. It's all about telling a good story. It's like Walt Disney. Look at the movies and look at in those scripts. There's about 100 pages to making a movie, and they also have a method. They also have a skeletal of how things are done and the structure of how to do it. And so Canadian Society of Celibates also offers this kind of structure for us. And so as we move forward, another question. It describes a ceremony script comprised components of each skeletal from start to finish and how it would look. So I believe I already gave the answers and I just saved the question, but there's much more to it. You will find what the anatomy of a ceremony is and what all these things, step by step, and how you would go about the interview checklist, the questionnaires, and how important is tradition to a celebrant ceremony, and what is the meaning of a guard of honor. So I think that you guys have already described this, so that you already know what a guard of honor is. And so it's already been discussed in previous from other people that I can go ahead and say it just right out of the book. They can be quite spectacular and add a touch of fear to the ceremony. And some examples can include a motorcycle cortege, fire engines, sporting teams, and other such uniform services. It's a popular means of expressing a tribute for the deceased who had a significant affiliation with such representative organizations. So, as we further move, I should be giving all these answers, but yeah, I'll give you a moment of silence where you can kind of decipher and for yourselves. For instance, like, what are some of the key pointers when first meeting with your clients? That's another interesting one. Like, how would you go about it? And so another question would be, let's give you a minute here. So I can catch my breath. So, what are some of the questions to ask while in the flow of collecting data from the initial interview? Just think about it. What are some of the things you'd be asking for your family to come up with this script? What is meant by memorial, and is it an umbrella term for many other services and ceremonies? What is the difference between a memorial and celebration of life ceremony? So, in a way, one answers the other question. Answer the question. The question. You decide the head. And so, yes, you can find more of this in the volume one, because I don't know how much time I have to describe this. And so, how can a funeral service benefit from bespoke ceremony? It's up to you, answer these questions and see what more you can get by reading the book. Maybe another time when I can come up here again or some other representative from Canadian Society of Celebrants to give it another lecture and have these answers slowly if you like, and bring us back on here again. This is our first presentation. We don't want to do it all the way. And so let's start with a scenario, perhaps the case scenario, and then a couple of them and see where you go with it. I'm sure you've done it in mathematics. The day before a funeral, you receive a call from the funeral director informing that your client's deceased wife had a son from a previous relationship and that he wants to make a tribute at the service. Any suggestions? Note that the funeral is a component of many ceremonies put together, right down to the graveside service. So perhaps I can see how much time I have and bring some more up on that. How many components to the actual funeral till the day of an actual final disposition that we can come up with. And so Is it possible to offer a pre-arranged service for a ceremony and before the person has become deceased? The answer is yes. And it makes it so much easier. It's just like flipping it into an admin after a career. And so let's go on. If you have been asked by a potential client to pre-arrange a ceremony for their elderly mother in hospice care and who is suffering from Alzheimer's disease, what will your advice be? And what type of ceremony can you recommend, if any? So, probably a little bit of time, perhaps, to see where you go with it. I think that's enough. You can just think about it. From the time, even before, from the first call, right to the vigil, right to the visitation. How many times have you seen the priest come in? Or lastly, how many different ways of creating a ceremony? It's not just on a day of a funeral service. And the more you break it up, it will become more a la carte and elaborate, but at the same time, it will become a little bit easier in segments rather than to have it all one big bang. So that, and then where do we go from here, folks? The advanced package to conclude with the following developments. So we have a couple of them, and let's start with funeral celebrants course outline. Maybe we can go there because I don't know how much time. And if I can see what somehow this is a little bit too small for my vision here. Oh my goodness. So maybe we can enlarge it somewhat. Because this whole chat is welcome to the next stage. And then the next stage is this handout that you will be getting as soon as you directly contact Canadian Society of Celebrants at gmail.com. As soon as you contact them directly, showing them an interest and that you have picked up the book and you have gone through it, there will be instructions on what you've been asked. So, but in the ebook, the only instructions you're going to get if you decide to pick up an ebook, Kindle or whatever, it'll just tell you to go to the hardcover. And from the hardcover, then it gives you further instructions. And from there, you get your handout, your name as you prefer to have showing on your certificate and or diploma, and your residence and all that lovely information. And the intermediate learners package is phase 1, and then it concludes with phase 2. Naturally, there's more work and interactions that student services can help to guide along you with. We're all here to help, and we're going to hesitate because you get what you pay for. I'm like, we're here all the way to see it through and make sure you get it. And so the advanced package is actually designed for people who already have their first certification. And so after they can do this without having to do intermediate, and it's a little bit less cost effective. It costs you less pretty much a little bit, and you can save some money. And at the same token, as we have 2 certificates. So once you have one, whether it be from volume 2 or volume 1, then you automatically go into the diploma. And so what we would be looking at the cost breakdown is the intermediate learners package, phase 1 and 2 is $400. And the advanced package phase is $300. So if this is your first certification that you're trying to obtain, you would be going with a $400 package because you need to work on confidence, and the only way that a person can obtain confidence is through the know-how knowledge. The more you practice, the more you gain confidence. And so it all depends on how many times you want to redo. Once you have the package, then out of the 6 scenarios, you can get another one and do it again for only $200. See? And so, but the advanced package phase 2 is $300. And so the additional costs are not mandatory because of the COVID and what we have here. A lot of online things and communications with Zoom and other interactive social medias that, we have to keep our social distancing, and wearing a mask and all these things isn't making it very attractive to doing these kind of services at this moment. So we've all kind of gone online and have been doing free evaluation. This is not mandatory, but if you want someone in the physical, you would be paying $250, depending on the location, an evaluator can be provided. We're still growing. Canadian Society of Celebrants is still in its infancy stage. It hasn't fully separated from its mother yet that much to become that it's on its way to walking. So it is up to the student otherwise to have a virtual assisted evaluator and or provide a video copy of the entire ceremony to the Canadian Society of Celebrants. Okay? In this case, the $250 will be waived and at no extra cost unless the student wishes. And for the complete cost of mailing the book for a seal and significant, for a seal and a signature of authentication. So in other words, if you want the book to be signed and sealed like your diploma would be, and yes, so just skip right along here. Where were we? Yes, okay. So we did skip quite significantly all over here. And so $250, PayPal me, or eBank, whatever you want, e-transfer rather, and any other way is optional. We discussed this with the Canadian Society of Celebrants, and so we're moving right along to the funeral celebrants, the intermediate learners phase 1, 2, student handbook. No, student handbook. Yes. I have it right here. Hold our hands. 43 pages. 43 pages indeed. So, with that said, once you make the payment, once you get that course outline, then you make the payment, and then this handbook is issued to you. And right away you can start. Where it will go from here. Why doesn't it show? Okay. Right. So we've gone to the funeral celebrancy intermediate package, and it describes upon completion of all tutorial assignments or before handing any of it in, produce a brief 500 words description of yourself, what brought you here, and a recent photo. Because we have, so the confidentiality is also very important. So for the fellowship and those who are in the internal portal, who have already have their diplomas and are on the active list, this eventually we will, when we grow to the expanded, that our competitors will not be of any significance, then we can start coming out more. But for now, for the confidentiality and kind of breaching, we have a little bit more of exclusive membership for those who are. And so some information will inevitably be missing and will be left up to you in these case scenarios to reach out to us for these particulars, as in real life you will be attentive and must reach out for these details with your family clients. Get used to missing information, as it is better to have more than not enough. Sometimes the details can be overlooked. In all certainty, you will find many things to complain about with the duplications, information given as is, and all over the place. Good luck with it. So it just kind of describes what kind of character you really have to be in order to persevere and become an ambassador that you can be representing us. And so as we go further on, this is just one of the scenarios. There's about 3 of them, I believe. There are 2 of them that are your pests, and then the others are actual humans, with different situations. And so, how you would best deal with them. They're not all elderly situations, and uh, nobody really wants this kind of weakness, but we have to get through them somehow. Okay? And so this is a little bit more uplifting. This is to do with the budget. Adopted somewhere around the spring of 2013. Her name was Bijou, August 21st, 2012. So there's a lot of information there that you can obtain from your funeral director, as well as with the obituaries and notices and other such things that collected information that you can work with. So it's not as complicated as things might appear, and this is where you can actually start off, and actually does answer one of those couple of questions that were previously mentioned. And so with all that I'm saying here, you are actually getting some answers to those questions. And so the critical expectations will start online tutorial feedbacks, one-on-one mentoring, online courses both for an opportunity and all these things, quizzes and other assignments. You can request for further learning. And so as we keep going, give some time to perhaps read some of this. We already mentioned what the mission and vision of the Canadian Society of Celebrants is. And so when you become a member for a yearly fee, you can be kept on file as an active participant. As members, the aim is to bring together education with business by training and hiring. A healthy record keeping and coordinating incentive is our mission. The amount said the ceremonial like celebrations as per pending qualifications that on occasion from this list will be asked to the mentors, mentees, and or to perform such said qualified duties. Also, there is no stipulation that states that a member of such standing cannot be ordained as an officiant. This is where the word officiant comes in. To be as a minister or have any pastoral affiliations, as well as licensing outside of Canadian Society of Celebrants, because all are welcome inclusively to join in as followers, or that you can all be in internal. There's many levels of getting in and being in. It's fellowship that requires self-study and training and learning to get to those levels. And so as we keep going, volume 1 will hopefully ingrain this unique, say, quality level of understanding in reference to specific things, places, and others of social values. And in future, perhaps we can have it all translated for Quebecois friends in French version, publication. For now, we're keeping it in English and some French as much as we can. So all of this is and more to come. If so you wish for us to come again and do another presentation, we would love and be honored to do another presentation for you. And so this is volume 2 for those who are interested in seeing what volume 2 might look like. It's also out in ebook, but again, not the same as the actual hardcover book. This is what it might look like. And so with that said, thank you so very much for this heartfelt participation and interaction that you allowed us here to share this moment with you present. And we hope that you have learned and obtained, and with much curiosity and incentive to keep going and learn some more. Thanks very much on behalf of the Canadian Funeral and the Canadian Society of Funeral Celebrants and Canadian Society of Celebrants, Funeral and Family Celebrants, all here who have gathered. Thank you so very much.